Hi everyone, Ravi this side. Welcome to Engineering Adda. So today I'm going to show you how you can Dockerize your Spring Boot application, where we are using the database as a MongoDB, and we will be creating a CRUD project here in the Spring Boot, and we are using the database as MongoDB. So how we can Dockerize the whole application, how we can create a Docker container, and how this CRUD project is interacting with the MongoDB database. So I will show you how you can do that. So we need to create a container for the MongoDB. We need to create a container for our application, and then both of the container will be communicating with each other. So I will show you how you can do it in the Docker. So let's get started. Let me go to the IntelliJ and then let me try to create a Spring Boot project first. Okay, so after that what I will do, I will try to show you how you can create the Docker image of the Spring Boot project as well as the MongoDB database that we are going to use. So let me come here, let me go to the new project. Okay, let me try to give the name as Spring Boot MongoDB CRUD. Okay, now let me go next. Let me try to include some starter dependency like Spring Web and Lombok. And the database that we are going to use is MongoDB. So let me try to include the Spring Data MongoDB here. Okay, let me try to create this. So it will take few seconds to configure itself. When it is configured, then we can start our development here. Let me close this. You can see here it is configuring the pom.xml file. It is resolving the map and dependencies. So let it done. Okay, I think we are good now. So let me go to the source, main, Java, and let me create a entity class as well as the repository and the controller as well. I'm not going to develop the service here. So let me create those packages first. So let's say it's a entity. Okay, let me create the repository package and controller. Okay, now I'm going to create a, let's say, student entity, and we are trying to insert some student record into the database, and we'll try to fetch out some record from the database. So let me create a student entity here. So student, add it. Let me try to annotate this with @entity. Okay, let me try to create first of all argument constructor, no argument, getter and setters, and then because we are using the MongoDB, so here it is document. Okay, we are not going to create the table here, so it is document here, and we are going to give the name as collection name as student collection. Okay, let me try to put here some underscore. Okay, so it will create one collection inside the database, and its name would be student collection. And this document is similarly how we are creating the table. So similar way the document will be created with the name collection. Now let me go to the repository and then let me try to create a student repo. Interface. Let this repository extend the MongoDB repository. So let's say it's a MongoDB Mongo repository. Okay. Here we need to provide these two argument. One is the entity name and second is the uh, ID of the entity. Okay. So let me provide some instance here in the student class. So let's say it's a student ID which is of integer type. Okay. Let me try to create the name of a student which is of a string type, and let me try to create the age. Let's say it's int age. So we are keeping these three instance here for the student, and this should be the ID. So I'm just annotating it with the @ID. Now come here to the student repo, and here we need to provide the two argument. One is the entity class which is student and the ID type of the student which is integer. Okay, now we're done with this. Now let me go to the controller and try to create one controller class. So let's say it's student controller, add it. Let me try to annotate this with the REST controller, and let me try to put some mapping here at the class level. So I'm using request mapping. Let's say it's API. Okay. Now let me try to create a get mapping here. So with the help of get mapping, what we'll try to do, we'll try to uh, let's say find all the student record from the database. So let me try to create the method name. It is returning the list of the students. So student get all students, something like that. Return. Let me import the list here, and the student class, it is already imported. Okay. So with the help of the Mongo repository provided method, we are going to call the find all method to get the all record of the student from the database. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to auto wire the instance of the student repository here. So let's say private student repo. Okay, and with the help of this, we'll try to call all the Mongo repository provided method. So let me call the find all method here and return the list of the student from the database. Now let me try to create one get mapping where I'm just finding out the student by the ID. So for that, let me try to provide the find, and then let me try to provide the ID here. And here in the argument, we need to pass that ID as a path variable so that we can pass it in the URL that we are going to hit. So it should be returning the student. Let me change the return type to student. Okay, and then let me try to create this method get student by ID. Okay, let me pass the ID here, and there is a method called find by ID. So I'm going to call that find by ID, and then we'll pass the ID here. And this ID should be, we are passing in the form of URL, so it should be passed as a path variable. And here we need to do the get and return it. So we have created these two mappings, which is get mapping, which is finding out the student record from the database. And let me try to create one mapping, post mapping, so that we can put some record into the database. So let's say it's insert, and then let me try to create the mapping for it. So let's say it's a public student insert. Okay, let me try to pass the request body here. So in the form of request, we are passing out the student object from the client, which is Postman, and it will be inserted to the database. So student repo, and there is a method called save, and we need to pass the student here and then return this. So it will return whatever student we are going to insert. So we are done with the creation of the post and the get mapping, and let me try to do some configuration here. So let me go to the resource. Let me try to create one application.yml file. So application.yml. Let me try to add it. So I'm going to do the configuration for the MongoDB. So let's say it is Spring Data MongoDB. I need to set the database name, host, and the port. So host, let's say it's localhost. Port, the default port for this is for the MongoDB is 27017, and let's say the database is, so the database name that I'm going to provide here is, this is the student controller and student entity. So I'm going to create a database called student database, something like that, student DB. So let's say it's student DB. Let me try to do, yeah. So here we are providing the host name, port name, and the database name. So for now, I keep the host name as localhost, but whenever we are going to create the Docker image for this application, and this application will be communicating with the MongoDB instance in the Docker for their database work. So at that time, whatever container that we will be creating for the MongoDB, that container name will need to provide here in the place of the host. So now the host is localhost, but if you want to communicate the Docker image of this application to the MongoDB instance in the Docker, then you need to provide the container name of the MongoDB. So let me try to update this, and let me try to keep the container name of the MongoDB as a EnggAdda. So with this name, what we'll do, we'll try to create a container of the MongoDB in the Docker. So EnggAdda, I'm just putting it like this. Okay, so we are done with the configuration. Now let me try to create a Docker file here. So let me go new and then file, and then we need to provide the name here, which is Docker file. Please remember that whenever you are going to create the Docker file, then you need to provide the name in this format only. D should be capital, and then everything should be small after that. Okay, so now let me try to create it, add it, and then let me try to do some Docker file configuration. So we are using OpenJDK for our application, and the OpenJDK version is 17 that I'm going to use. Okay, now we need to create the jar file for this application. So I'm just going to add the jar file to this target location. So, and let's say our jar file name would be Spring Boot Docker MongoDB, something like that. So let's say it's Boot Spring Boot Mongo Docker. Okay, dot jar. Let me try to copy this and provide the name. This is the location where the jar will be created, and this is the name of the jar. Now let me try to create the entry point here. Okay, so the entry point is Java minus jar, Java minus jar, and then we need to provide the jar file name. So this is the jar file. Put a forward slash and then provide this. So this is what we need to do in the Docker file. Now we are done with the configuration of the Docker file. Let me remove the space here. Okay, so let me go to the pom.xml and then try to put the final name here in the build so that with the name a Docker file will be created. With the name a jar file will be creating in the target folder. So let me try to provide the name of that jar file. So let me go to the Docker file, copy this name and come to the pom.xml and then put it here. Now we need to build this application. So let me go to the Maven, go to this Maven execute, and I need to do the Maven install. So that after that, when the build will be succeed, then a jar file will be created inside the target folder. So let me come here. Let's wait for the build to be succeed. So you can see one target folder is generated here. You can come inside it and you can see one jar file is generated with the name Spring Boot Mongo Docker that we have provided here. So we are done with the creation of the jar file. Now what we need to do, we need to create a Docker image of this application and we need to have a Docker image of the MongoDB in our Docker. So let me try to open the Docker desktop that I have installed already or whatever uh, tool you are going to use for the Docker like Docker Toolbox or I'm using the Docker desktop. So any of them you can use to carry out your Docker work. So once it is up, what I need to do, I need to create a image of the application that we have created, and I need to pull the image of the MongoDB from the Docker hub. So I already have did. I let me open a terminal and then let me show you what all the images I have and what all I need to create. So first of all, let me go to the place where we have created the application. So it is Spring Mongo DB CRUD. Let me go to this location. Okay, engineering adda and then project. Okay, okay, it is inside this folder, I think. Okay, so let me open it. Let me open a command prompt here and let me try to run some Docker command. So let me try to run the command Docker images to show what all the images I have. So you can see I have MongoDB, sorry, Mongo image, and I have couple of other images as well. So if you don't have the Mongo image on your local, then you need to pull it from the Docker hub. So for that, the command is docker pull and then Mongo, and you can provide the version of that. So let's say you can do latest and then enter. So what it will do, it will try to pull out the, you can see it is pulling the library Mongo from the from the Docker hub for you in your local. So you need to have this to carry out your work. So I already have. So you need to run the command docker pull Mongo and you can provide the version here. So once you are having the Mongo image in your local, then I'm going to create the Docker image of our application. So we are already there in the folder structure where we have the Docker file. Let me show you. So we are here inside this folder structure and you can see we have the Docker file here. So you need to open a command prompt here. I already have did that. And to create a image of this application, we need to run the docker command. So it is docker build and then -t, and then you need to provide the name of the docker image that you want to create. So let me try to name it Spring Mongo image, something like that. Spring Mongo app. Okay. And then you need to provide the root here. So you need to provide the dot. This is the command. Let me try to hit enter. So you can see it is started building our Docker image. Okay. So let me try to run the command Docker images and then let me try to show you. So you can see it is creating one Docker image with the name is Spring Mongo app that we have provided, and it has created it 8 seconds ago. So we are now done with the creation of Docker image of our application. We have the Mongo instance here in our local Docker. Okay, so we have these two things in our local system. Now what I need to do, I need to create a container of the MongoDB instance. So for that we need to run the command docker run minus d minus p, and then you need to provide the port number for that. So the default port for the MongoDB is 2017. I'm providing that 201 27017, and then 27017, and then name of that container should be engineering adda that we have already provided here in our application. You can see. Let me go to the application YML file. You can see. Let me copy it from here. Come to the command prompt. Provide the Docker container name for the MongoDB, and the image is Mongo. Okay, and its tag is latest. You can also provide the tag. So this is the command. Now let me try to enter. So you can see we have created one container for the MongoDB instance, and the container name is engineering adda. So let me show you that. So let me try to run the command docker ps. So you can see we have one container engineering adda, and the docker image is Mongo. Okay, so we have the container for the Mongo, and we already have the docker image of our application. Now we need to link both of them and then make it run. So for that, let me try to run a command called docker run minus p, and we need to provide the port number. So let's say I'm putting the port number 8080, which is the default port for our application. Okay, and then let me try to give the name of the image. So the image name is Spring Mongo app, Spring Mongo app, and then we need to link it to the container that we have created, which is engineering adda and Mongo, and then we need to provide the Spring Boot application Docker image name, which is Spring Mongo app, Spring Mongo app, and let me provide the version of that latest one. Okay, so let me try to hit this command. So we have created a link between both of them. Okay, and our application should be up now. So it is not showing here. Let me come to the Docker desktop and then let me try to show you. So let me go to the container, and this is the container which is linking the Spring Boot application as well as the MongoDB container, and it is running on the port number 8080, right? Let me try to run it from here. Let me try to do restart. Okay. So it is running on the port number 8080. Let me try to open a postman and let me try to hit some endpoints. Okay. So let me go to the IntelliJ. Let's see what is the API that we have developed. So let me try to go to the controller first. Okay. So for post mapping, it is API slash insert, and then we need to provide the student request. So let me come here. Okay, let me try to do that. So it is 8080, and the database or the collection name that we are creating is student collection, I think. Let me go to the entity and then show you. So this is the collection name. Okay, come here to the postman 8080 API slash insert, and what all the instances are there? ID, name, and the age. So ID should be 101, and let's say name is Naman, and age is 24. And let me change the method to post. Let me try to enter it. So you can see we are able to insert one record into the database, which is MongoDB database. Okay. Now let me try to insert some other records. Let's say it is 102. Name should be, let's say, Amit, and age I'm keeping as 24 only. Let me try to send it. So it is also inserted. Now let me try to run the get mapping. So let me go to the controller. You can see for get mapping we have find all and the find by ID. So let me try to find all first and then find by ID. So find all, change the method type to get, and then send. So you can see we are able to get these two records. Let me try to check the find API as well. So find, and then we need to provide the ID 101. Let me try to enter it. So you can see. So whatever API post and the get we have developed, it is working fine. So it is showing that we are able to connect with the MongoDB in the Docker, and we are able to try to hit our APIs from the Postman client, and it is working fine. So you can see this is running in the container called Spring Mongo app, and we are able to hit this APIs that we have created. Okay, you can see this application is not up, it is not running. We are running the Docker container of this application that we have created and linked to the MongoDB container. So everything is working fine. So this is about this video, guys. If you like the video, please hit the like button and please subscribe the channel for more such content. Thanks.